that, had to get my dog out of my car. Lily, come here. You want to see everybody? Come here. This is Lily. This is my little princess. Oh, you're a good girl. You're a good girl, Lily. You're a good girl, Lily. Okay. Enough puppy stuff. Hey, real quick before we get started on this video, I want to remind you that Christmas is coming up. You could knock out Christmas in... She must see a squirrel. You can knock out Christmas in 10 minutes if you go to yetibars.net and look at some of their soaps. And I've got some of it open here I want to show you. Here is the ever popular Hippie #1. So when you buy it, you know what you're going to be getting. It's a big, thick bar. It lasts a long time. Oh, I just love the way it smells. This is the Eucalo bar. I'm only going to show you 4 right now, but this is the Eucalo bar. It's more of a subtle smell, but it smells and feels like it has moisturizers in it. People have been commenting and giving reviews that this is real good soap for your skin. This is the Dude. It's a little darker color. It's got, I don't know how to describe smells. It either smells good or it stinks. This doesn't stink. It smells really good. I've used this, several bars of this. This is one of my favorites. This is the Glacier bar. Oh man, I've had these open in my office for about an hour and my office just smells great. It normally smells like dogs, but it smells great. Anyway, I just wanted to show you those. Christmas is coming up. This is what we do. We make a big order every fall and just get it in early. Go to yetibars.net. You can check them out on Facebook at Yeti Bars. Take a look at their products. Take a look at their prices. I think you'll be happy. Great customer service. Give them a try. They'd love to hear from you. Oh, and use the code DC10 at checkout. Get a 10% discount off your whole order. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. Go check them out. All right. Thanks for joining the Dixiecryptid podcast. My name is Cam Buckner, and all we do is stories. Going to do something just a little different today. I'm not changing to this permanently, so everybody calm down. Every time I say I'm doing something different, I get several emails. People, don't change. I'm not just. This is just for one video. But several people complain about me yakking after each story, and just I don't know. And it is pretty useless. I admit it, but. It's just kind of my personality. When I read these, I just have something to say about it. I think you might too. But to make that little handful of people happy that complain about it, I'm just going to read these stories, thank the writer, and move on. So, you know, so that there's something here for everyone. And so all the people who don't like that, I hope you enjoy this. We'll go back to the regular yakking after the stories in the next video. Okay? Okay. All right. Here we go. All right, this email is from someone who calls himself Brave Native. It was a crisp southern Vermont morning in November of 2019. Rifle season was in swing, and I was a new hunter, and I was out scouting fresh spots to hunt. I found a beautiful piece of state land off Route 7 that was the perfect habitat for whitetail, so I decided to check it out. I walked slowly into the woods, eagerly stalking the whitetail I knew had to be there and enjoying the peaceful forest surrounding me. Not more than a few yards in, my enthusiasm disintegrated into an uncomfortable feeling of being watched. A few more steps and I began to feel as though someone was following me as well. It was unnerving. Unwilling to let this feeling ruin my hunt, I shook it off and I kept going. When I came to a point where the hardwoods met the massive patch of pines, though, I couldn't help but think that it was the perfect place for someone to be watching me. The rows of pines stretched on for what looked like forever. Anyone could easily slip in and out of the rows and hide behind the trees. They could move closer or farther away undetected behind the incredible shroud. I still didn't let it stop me, though. I was determined to get my first buck. I didn't think the deer would be in those pines, so I stayed on the line that separated them from the hardwoods and continued at a slow pace. The sudden crack of a few limbs breaking stopped me short as a thud shook the ground beneath me. It was as if someone had dropped a bag of concrete from the top of one of those trees, letting it free fall to the earth with a resounding smack. Startled and with my guard up, I stopped and listened. The woods had gone still at the moment of impact, crushed under a roaring silence for more than half a minute. I looked over to where I heard the thud and saw a huge blackish-brown figure sprinting through the pines on two legs. He was leaving a trail of small, snapped, and broken limbs in its wake. It was enough. I was terrified, and I abandoned my hunt and got out of the woods as fast as I could. I was pushed along by my primal fear and the need to be safe. I had been back to those woods a handful of times. I even ventured through the pines, but I've never seen or heard anything like I did that day. You know how people react to these kinds of stories, so I kept this to myself. And this story is absolutely true, and I want you to know that I feel much better having written it all out. It's a relief to be able to share it with someone. Thank you for that. Your voice is bigger than you know. Signed, Brave Native. Now Nope, not going to say a word. Thanks, Brave Native. That's a great story. I'd love to comment on it, but some people don't like that, so we're just not going to do it on this one and make them happy. Okay, let's move to another story. All right, here's a email from JB. JB lives in my state, and this is a pretty good story. I live in the Mississippi Delta, where I spend a lot of my spare time looking for Native American artifacts. We have more First Nation sites in our county and those surrounding it than the entire rest of the state of Mississippi. It was on one of these days back in 2009 when I was at an antebellum home built on an Indian mound with 3 more mounds around it. It was located around 1.5 miles to 2 miles from the Mississippi River. This was a property I'd been to many times in my life. A close friend of mine grew up there. Although the place is definitely haunted, that's a story for another day. Oh, dude, I don't want to wait on that story. Send us that story. That's a good one. I love haunted house stories. Anyway, back to the story. One story that is relevant, though, is the time my friend's grandfather thought someone was trying to break into their cars. He crept outside with a baseball bat and followed the culprit around the house. It wasn't until he got in the moonlight that he realized this thing was 2 feet taller than him. My friend's grandfather backed away and went back inside to get his 10-gauge shotgun. When he came back outside, now fully armed, he saw the thing running across the big Indian mound. It was a story my friend was fond of telling, but I never gave it much thought until that day in 2009. By that time, my friend's family had moved away from the place. I like to look for arrowheads when they're tilling fields and we've had some rain. On this day, I brought my 2 dogs, Ivan and Drago. Other than that, I was alone. Ivan was a 165-pound South American Boerboel, B-O-E-R-B-O-E-S, Boerboel, I think that's right. And there was Drago. He's a half American Bulldog and half Napoleon Mastiff who weighed 155 pounds. Boerboels, for those who don't know, are bred for the sole purpose of protecting kids and property in Africa. They have been known to kill leopards. These 2 dogs weren't afraid of anything. I was walking between a mound and the woods when I noticed how quiet it was. The normal sounds you'd expect to hear when wandering around out in the country, especially that close to the woods, just weren't there. It was then that I realized my dogs weren't acting right. The area was 80 yards wide, and I was somewhere in the middle looking at various rocks and pottery that I was finding, when all of a sudden both dogs looked at the same point in the woods and they started growling. Then they both took off running towards that spot in the woods. They were only 30 feet in when I completely lost sight of them. Just as the dogs broke through the thicket, something let loose with the most bone-shattering, heart-stopping, guttural growl I've ever heard. I didn't just hear it, I felt it in my chest. And then something else happened that stopped me in my tracks. Drago began hollering. Not out of pain, but out of fear. I never knew him to be afraid of anything, and I mean anything. Both dogs came tearing out of the woods with their ears pinned back and their tails tucked and made a beeline for me. They hunkered down and cowered down behind me as if I was going to protect them. Whatever the thing was that had just made the scariest noise I've ever heard frightened my dogs so bad, they, two of the fiercest dogs I've ever known, wanted me to protect them. I barely had time to figure out what was wrong with them when they both bolted for my truck. These two dogs cleared the tailgate of my Dodge Diesel and hopped into the bed like it was nothing. Needless to say, I wasn't far behind them. People have asked me why I don't go there much anymore. I don't tell them the truth. Who would believe me? Normally, I'd just say I got burned out on that spot and I'll leave it at that. It took a while, but I did go back on occasion. I don't take my dogs with me anymore, but I do carry an AR-10 and a Glock 10mm, and I don't turn my back on the woods. Oh man, I would love to... no, I can't. I can't talk about that because some people don't like me talking after these stories. So, sorry, JB, I can't tell you what a great story this is and give you my thoughts on it. We'll just go to another story. Sorry, man. All right, and this last story is a email I got fairly recently from a man who claims he's Native American and he lives in the Rocky Mountains. And his story was a little difficult to read, but I've kind of cleaned it up and I'm trying to get his point across. He's a good writer, but he uses some flowery, can't say it, flowery language, and I think it would distract from what he's trying to say. So I'm saying the same thing he said. I'm just saying it in a way that you can grasp it a little better. He calls himself Suakalu. And so he'll recognize that when he hears this. And I hope he's not upset with me for kind of smoothing out some of the writing, but I'm going to say the same thing he said, so let's get into it. He writes, in the beginning, some years ago, from my youth to current times, I've had strange encounters. I've been documenting beings that many consider myths. The world laughs at what they fear to understand. This I've learned over the 55 years of my life. We must learn to face our fears and embrace the truths learned one at a time. Like eating a mammoth, one bite at a time is easier than trying to devour the whole thing in one dinner. So let's begin my story. Somewhere in the lands of the American Rocky Mountains, where I now reside, I came to the understanding not too many years ago that the Sasquatch/wild people were to be found here as well. Previously, I thought they only lived in the coastal and northern lands of North America where I was born, but I was wrong. After some strong encounters and minor ones in my area, I learned that they reside not far from my home. Having taken my children on day hikes to many areas, I discovered evidence in tracks and structures one day. Well, my daughter scoffed at the idea, and she rolled her eyes even. And then I asked her to come and look at the print in the icy snow by the log. She said, well, it's obviously a footprint, Dad. And then I placed my foot next to it. It's a size 13. And I said, what do you think about that? And I clearly saw the realization in her eyes that this track was made by something much larger than me. From that day forward, I have visited these canyon lands and mountains. It's not hard to locate the wild people. even get distant photos of them and their families. What I share here is not about the reality of these wild beings I call Sasquatch, but of other things, unexpected things that I have discovered that live among them. For years, I have sat on the knowledge of what I've seen, trying to wrap my mind around the possible consequences, good or bad, of speaking about it publicly. But now I wonder if others throughout the world have seen what I have seen. I go out and I take long-range photos of the areas I know these family groups live in. As I've done this and tested ideas to bring them down closer to me, some were very successful. And this is unnerving, being within 20 or 30 feet of these giants. But they are curious, and so far none have been aggressive with me. I think they are curious about what I'm doing. I use my spotting scope with a cell phone camera attached as they hang out on average at 800 to 1200 yards from where I see them. It would be hard to climb up there to their hangouts. It would take hours. And by the time I arrive, they would have moved, so I don't waste my energy and time attempting to get close. In reviewing photos that I've taken one day, I noticed a massive auburn Sasquatch walking along the canyon side, just below others of the clan. Off to the side in the open, little ones played in the dirt and through the sagebrush and the pinyon pines there. What was unusual was the light-colored ones I saw. After enlarging the images, I could make out something disturbing. I saw hairless creatures, pink-skinned beings that looked like human in shape. These beings walk freely among the hairy creatures I see on a regular basis. A dark-haired female stood downslope of a large auburn creature. She was smaller and appeared to have a head full of hair resembling dreadlocks. Now, she was smaller, but don't assume she was small. The auburn being was easily 10 feet tall, and behind her was a bare-skinned being with dark hair on its head and beard, but its skin was bare and pink. Over many years of returning to the areas, I've taken similar photos with humans in various sizes and ages with this clan of Sasquatch. I have images of adolescent females, one with dark hair and one with red hair. There are a few toddlers. I also have images of an older couple, both with gray hair. The older male has a long gray beard. I have questions, of course. Who or why would humans be among the wild Sasquatch clans? And are they even human? I thought of the Can-Am Missing 411 project and the many people who have disappeared. For 40 years, I've heard stories of many folks taken by Sasquatch for mates or maybe even pets. Who knows for sure? But tales of successful interbreeding are known. I learned of the Sasquatch Genome Project by Dr. Ketchum. This brought forth some other ideas. Could the DNA, which is scientifically proven to be 50% human, have happened over time with interbreeding with other species? Or, from long past, could there be a mix of Sasquatch and human DNA passed on through the centuries to produce these mixed DNA wild humanoids? If this were the case, would they tend to be attracted to more human-like beings for mates? This may have produced what I am seeing at this time, living humans amongst the clan of Sasquatch we have here in the western mountains. I continue to visit and try to document these things. The world may or may not accept my findings, but that's not my concern. I don't care what the world thinks from the comfort of their safe homes. I continue towards more self-education on this issue. It is strange that they seem to live peacefully together in this place, while in the East they tend not to get along. Meanwhile, there are other things I've seen in this region that I won't reveal. The truth is stranger than myths, and yet the myths are what is becoming truth in our days. Many of the ancients of the world spoke of things modern society labels as a myth and not reality. But who labels what people see as a myth? So-called educated people, governments, those with agendas, or people who fear truths they dare not desire to comprehend. In the last 100 years, many species have been labeled wrong and are now proven real. Now, science was designed for the open-minded person to explore, to learn, to speculate, and to test theories, and to seek truth or disprove theory. Science today seems more like fundraising and a glory-seeking endeavor. My new study is just beginning, and I will move slow and carefully. I have no funding. Maybe more education closes the mind more than it creates curiosity. Those who fear the truth will mock it. Those who fear new paradigms seek to ridicule those who have the ability and experiences to open new paradigms and new boxes of reality. I'm not doing this for fame. I want to share my findings with the world, no matter the blowback. I think the more we share with the world, the better others will be able to deal with the trauma and PTSD of encountering these creatures. But I recommend that you don't seek these things out. They can be dangerous. It is not a game for the foolish. People vanish looking for these things. And as with all the wild tribes of the earth, these things may not desire to interact with you. They may just seek you out to kill you. Their ways are not your ways, and it is a game of life and death. May God bless you and all out there and give you the wisdom to decipher your paths in life. Keep open minds, seek answers for yourself. The Creator will guide you if you will allow Him to do so. I'm going to leave out my native name and location in the mountains because the ongoing investigation needs peace. I'm not interested in people swarming my area, yelling and banging on trees. This offends the creatures the most. And he signs off, Suakalu. And I'd like to say, no, I can't do it. I can't. It might upset some people if I talk about this story, so I'm just not going to do that. I want this video to be for them. So no commentary from me. That's going to do it for this video. I hope all those people that think I yak too much after the stories are happy. They've probably clicked away now because I'm not reading a story. I'm talking. I'm just talking. I'm talking. And it drives them crazy. It drives them nuts. And so they've probably clicked away. So I can talk a little bit now. But really all I have to say is thank you for watching this video and listening to this podcast. I really appreciate you. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank y'all.